Where's Sherry? She just does such a beautiful job speaking from her heart. And when I see other people do that, I'm so inspired. I hope to move more into that as I grow and continue. But for tonight, I will have a reliance on some notes. But I think if you've been following along, you know we're working in this book, The Heart of the Buddha's Teachings by Thich Nhat Hanh. And this little subtitle is really sweet, Transforming Suffering into Peace, Joy, and Liberation. And just to say peace, joy, and liberation again and again throughout the day, right? It feels transformative, it has a rhythm to it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring forward chapters 18 and 19. Tonight, we're going to play in chapter 18, which is the three Dharma seals that we also know as the three marks of existence. I've always known them as the three marks, so it was fun to find them in here, and there's a little reframing, and we'll get to that in a minute. And then at the all-day sit, register if you haven't registered for Sunday. And then next week on Tuesday, I'll bring forward the three doors of liberation. And those are some of my favorite teachings, and they're lesser known. Thich Nhat Hanh uses language in this book where he calls the three Dharma seals that we're looking at tonight the keys to the three doors. So there's some linking, and I'll leave that to your imagination. And then I wanted to also say this. This is from this book. This is Thich Nhat Hanh's writing. He talks about the Avatamsaka Sutra, which we know we're going to look at for practice period. And he names that in the Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that all dharmas, phenomena, enter one dharma, and one dharma enters all dharmas. If you go deeply into any one of the teachings of the Buddha, you will find all the other teachings in it. And I think this is what, Debbie, you've been bringing forward, and maybe we talked about privately. I don't know if the recipe thing came forward in this space or not, but it feels like in many cultures that there's like some staple ingredients that you need, right?
The Mexican food.
Yeah, but it's like
I was afraid it was inappropriate because what I said is like, Chelsea, it's like the Dharma, it's like it's all over. It's like Mexican food. It's all the same stuff. They just rearrange it. I was afraid it was racist.
But it maybe applies to many cultures in cooking.
Yes.
Like you get your staple ingredients from region to region of what is arising from the land in those places. So, but it feels similar. And then that makes me think of the Tenzo Kyokan and the supreme meal that we're cooking with all of these ingredients. So they're showing up again and again in different formations for different reasons. So we can enter them in different ways. But this is not to say, I don't want us to get confused and think that that means that like we can skip the vegetables. It's not a platter. It's not a buffet platter. I'm not practicing with generosity today. I mean, maybe we all do that. We all do that. But it's more that when we start to look into generosity, we find that no self is there. When we look into no giver, no receiver, no gift, that we find no self and all the world arising in that moment. So it's more like that they interpenetrate this way. So tonight, the three seals, and I'm already pointing to one, which is no self, anatta. No separate or fixed self. Brought my lucky Enzo. I'm going to read a little bit here. If you have the book, and there's no requirement for that, of course, it's this chapter starts on page 131. And just this little smidge he gives us, Thich Nhat Hanh says, the three Dharma seals are impermanence, non-self, and nirvana. Any teaching that does not bear these three seals cannot be said to be the teaching of the Buddha. And right off the bat, this gets my attention. It's different because I've always known the three marks or the three seals to be impermanence, no self, and dukkha, suffering. So I got one sentence into the chapter and had to go down all the rabbit holes and try and figure out what was happening. And that was fun. And some of what I found was actually in an earlier chapter of this book. He's talking about different schools of Buddhism that have brought forward different teachings at different times. And the thing that mattered in that I thought really mattered was suffering is secondary. It's not necessarily a mark of existence. Like the Four Noble Truths are that there is suffering. It includes suffering, not that everything is suffering. That's existentialism. Kind of. So he's saying that the three marks are impermanence and no self, and nirvana as the foundation, the substance that things are made of. And that suffering is what arises when we're resisting those three marks or those three seals. So I appreciated that distinction. Okay, so let's read what he says. 131. The first Dharma seal is impermanence. The Buddha taught that everything is impermanent. Flowers, tables, mountains, political regimes, bodies, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. We cannot find anything that is permanent. Flowers decompose, but knowing this does not prevent us from loving flowers. In fact, we are able to love them more because we know how to treasure them while they're still alive. If we learn to look at a flower in a way that impermanence is revealed to us, when it dies, we will not suffer. Maybe we won't suffer as much. Impermanence is more than an idea. It is a practice to help us touch reality. And he emphasizes that again and again in this book. I think it's so important for us. I know myself as like, I come up here and just kind of live in the land of ideas and theory, and it's fun to study, but what does it look like to practice impermanence, to drop it into the body and to hold these concentrations on these practices when we're really looking, that we see with these eyes. It says, understanding impermanence can give us confidence, peace, and joy. Impermanence does not necessarily lead to suffering. Without impermanence, life could not be. Without impermanence, your daughter could not grow up into a beautiful young woman or into a beautiful person. Without impermanence, oppressive political regimes would never change. We think impermanence makes us suffer. And then he goes on to say the Buddha gave us an example of a dog that was hit by a stone that gets mad at the stone. Like, and that's not it. It's not the stone's fault. I remember when my daughter was little, we would do that sometimes if she tripped on something. We'd be like, do you want to kick the table? Just to sort of like show the absurdity of it. And so we can study what's actually happening in us in these relationships. But we don't blame impermanence. And Ty has some language I always appreciate when I hear it or come across it when he says we could actually say, all hail impermanence, kind of next level. But it's there, right? It's because of this, everything is possible, dynamic. There's a phrase, a Japanese phrase, mono no aware, mono no aware. It points to that like flavor of it's like a little melancholy flavor. The plum blossoms, they're already going, they're here and they're gone so quickly. The transience of life. My dog, I just saw a photograph that came up and showed that he's 9.5 years old. It's like, yeah. Oh, it's quickly passing. Oh no, Owari. It's like, come here. I'm gonna smooch on you as much as I can today and live deeply. Like knowing this nature is my nature too. The second Dharma seal is no self. And I thought this was interesting. He says, from the point of view of time, we say impermanence. And from the point of view of space, we say non-self. That just to me is worthy of a lot of investigation, like time versus space, or maybe putting them in the land of form. The self is arising seemingly. And in what we view time, there's something dynamic and flowing. And yet the two are like this, co-creating one another. So from the point of view of time, we say impermanence, and from the point of view of space, we say non-self. Things cannot remain themselves for 2 consecutive moments. Therefore, there is nothing that can be called permanent, a permanent self. Before you entered this room, you were different physically and mentally. Looking deeply at impermanence, you see non-self. Looking deeply at non-self, you see impermanence. You cannot say, I accept impermanence, but non-self is too difficult. They're the same. So we're back to rejecting our vegetables again. And he goes on, I won't read this part, but it's really sweet. He talks about being at Tassajara and that it was the first time he had peanut butter cookies. And he tells the story of being in the kitchen and he's like stirring up the batch. And where's Yael? I thought about you in there with all the kids making your banana bread, a big old batch of it. And he's saying something like, you see this, like the oneness of the batch. And then they go into like their little distinctive self cookies and start to think of themselves as individual selves. And that this is where the problem is. It says, but the cookie maker knows it's one batch, that it's still the same. So it's in this like thinking that we become separate, that we get into trouble. I was grateful to hear I'm not the only one that has thoughts like this while I'm making cookies. And that doing these practices with children can also be a beautiful Dharma teaching. He calls that our discriminative perception. There's a Pali word, vikalpa, and that we suddenly set up barriers between ourselves and others. And isn't this at the heart of what we're seeing right now in the world? Self and other, me and you. And I turn into some kind of angry badger and my defenses come out because you're over there and I'm over here. But how do I drop that and see we're all in the peanut butter bowl together? We all have the capacity of living with non-discriminating wisdom, but we have to train ourselves to see in that way, to see that the flower is us, the mountain is us, our parents and our children are all us. When we see that everyone and everything belongs to the same stream of life, our suffering can vanish. He says, will vanish. I'm being a little can vanish. And the third Dharma seal is nirvana. And this is what I was saying before about the difference between life is suffering and life includes suffering. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think I want to read a little section here. I love this language he's using, calling nirvana the ground of being. He says, nirvana, the third Dharma seal, is the ground of being, the substance of all that is. A wave doesn't have to die in order to become water. Water is the substance of the wave. The wave is already water. We're also like that. We carry in us the ground of interbeing, nirvana, the world of no birth and no death, no permanence and no impermanence, no self and no non-self. Nirvana is the complete silencing of concepts. And that phrase has been just juicy for me. I've been holding that. Drop concepts now. There's a poem I'll bring out another time. That has that phrase in it, drop concepts now. That's nirvana. It's the cessation, the extinction of views. I've heard Thich Nhat Hanh say all views are wrong.
All views are
wrong.
wrong.
All views are wrong. Yeah, that even maybe it's a Diamond Sutra, I don't know, that where there's thought, there's delusion. Drop concepts now. Nirvana is the extinction of all notions. Birth is a notion. Death is a notion. Being is a notion. Non-being is a notion. In our daily lives, we have to deal with these relative realities. But if we touch life more deeply, reality will reveal itself in a different way. Mm. He was talking about experiences. I have one more thing in here I wanted to read. 139, maybe one more. 139. Well, he gives us these 8 concepts. Do we know these? Birth and death, permanence, dissolution, coming, going, one and many. These are 8 concepts, and the practice is to end attachment to these. And he says, once these 8 ideas have been destroyed, strong language from Thich Nhat Hanh, destroyed, we touch nirvana. Nirvana is released from the 8 concepts and also from their opposites: impermanence, non-self, interdependent, co-arising, and emptiness, and the middle way. It's wild, like all of it. Drop it now. If we hold on to the 3 seals as fixed ideas, these ideas also have to be destroyed. The best way to do this is by putting these teachings into practice in our daily lives. Experience always goes beyond ideas. It's profound. I love it. I don't know. I was a skater as a teenager. All my friends were like skateboarders. And so I hear that word destroy and I think of like Tony Hawk, like skate and destroy. It's a powerful word, but that attitude even, right? There's like that strength behind it feels really important, especially in these times. So as I was reading, I was thinking his last phrase there is like, it has to be experienced. It has to be known through our lives. It's the whole thing. He's dropping the concepts. I just came back to some of the experiences and the moments I shared a couple weeks ago, giving my talk on this delightful day. I was thinking of being at Green Gulch with you, Debbie. I was thinking of that sense of like, what is time and space? Like we can taste it in those moments. The concepts are dropping away. Or earlier in the spring, being at Green Gulch, I mean, Ellis was there and the frogs were so loud. It's like in that moment, like what is frog song and what am I? I feel some of this here and now through my body. Yeah, Ella, it's the same as where'd you go? The children in the Morning Star. There you are. Yeah, Ella, the most beautiful picture. You can imagine her sitting at 5 something in the morning at Tassajara on a little bridge with the mountain peak and the Morning Star. And she's sitting in silence, waiting for the children to come so she can be with them and offer that Dharma. And I come up the path and there she is. And all concepts just drop away. It's like Thich Nhat Hanh said that the Buddha's words on awakening was he saw that morning star and it was, that's it. It's me that's shining so brightly together with all beings. Wake up. So these experiences in the Vimalakirti Sutra, Buddha says he does something like takes his foot and puts his toe down on the ground, and the regular earth suddenly illuminates into jewels and is shining. It's like it's right here all the time. I felt something like that as we were walking and the light is coming in. I came by the fountain and just one drop landed on me. It was very cute. Like one water drop came over to say hello. I don't know if it was a Suzuki Roshi or Thich Nhat Hanh, but one of them said something like, those are postcards from impermanence, postcards from emptiness. Here they are. I'll close with this last excerpt from the book. It's impermanence, non-self, interdependent co-arising, and the middle way are all keys to open the door of reality. There's no point in leaving them in your pocket. You have to use them. When you understand impermanence and non-self, you're already free of much suffering and in touch with nirvana, the 3rd Dharma seal. Nirvana is not something to look for in the future. As a Dharma seal, it is present in every one of the Buddha's teachings. The nirvana nature of the candle, the table, the flower, the water drop are revealed in the teachings, just as their impermanent and non-self nature are. So I was thinking to get into some discussion groups now to our pairs. I always appreciate when Krista says, what's turning for you? What is alive? So that's an option. If you need a prompt that's more specific, it could be something like, where and when have you noticed any of these three seals, or received a postcard from emptiness or impermanence? Hmm. And then this time-space thing that he said there, that impermanence takes place in time and non-self is in a land of space. That's getting me. If that has any curiosity for you, that could be a discussion prompt also. It's pointing to me to Uji. There's something in there worth further exploring.
Mm.
Yeah. And who does timing of the breakout rooms? That would not be me.